Ethan, a powerful and arrogant businessman, believed his wealth and influence justified his harsh treatment of others. But one encounter with an immigrant worker would unravel his pride and force him to confront his humanity. Ethan lived a life of privilege, with success fueling his arrogance and self-importance. Known for his sharp tongue and disdain for others, he left humiliation in his wake. Yet, beneath the facade of confidence was a man on the brink of a lesson he could never anticipate, a humbling confrontation with karma that would change his life forever. Ethan's wealth was a fortress, protecting him from the realities most faced. He reveled in his power, treating kindness as weakness and compassion as unnecessary. Every interaction served his goals, leaving little room for empathy. His employees feared him, aware of the humiliation he could deliver with a single scathing remark. Despite his apparent confidence, Ethan's arrogance masked an inner insecurity he refused to acknowledge. One morning, Ethan stormed into the office, frustrated by a delayed shipment. His fury turned to Ravi, an immigrant worker with limited English skills who had mistakenly delivered a package to the wrong department. Ethan mocked his accent, ridiculing him in front of colleagues. Ravi, mortified but humble, apologized repeatedly, but Ethan's tirade continued. His words, sharp and unrelenting, cut deep into Ravi's dignity. Unmoved by the discomfort of others, Ethan dismissed Ravi with a wave, not noticing the looks of disapproval exchanged among his staff. Yet, Ravi's quiet perseverance lingered in the minds of onlookers, planting seeds of doubt about Ethan's leadership. Still, Ethan remained oblivious, convinced his dominance was untouchable. That evening, Ethan recounted the event with amusement to a friend, dismissing Ravi as unworthy of respect. He failed to see that his actions were more than an abuse of power, they reflected a void in his character. Little did Ethan know that the consequences of his arrogance were already in motion. In his insulated world, Ethan remained blind to the fragility of his empire. Each decision, each insult, carried a weight he refused to consider. But the cracks in his seemingly perfect life were growing, waiting for the moment to shatter his illusions and expose the lessons he desperately needed to learn. Ethan's world began to tremble as cracks appeared in the foundation of his empire. What started as a minor financial hiccup turned into a full-blown crisis when major clients canceled contracts unexpectedly. His previously unshakable confidence gave way to frustration and panic as his team scrambled for solutions. Ethan's arrogance, once a shield, now left him isolated and unprepared. The once bustling office grew quieter by the day, with layoffs looming and morale sinking. Ethan, however, refused to acknowledge the depth of the crisis. Instead of fostering collaboration, he doubled down on his controlling behavior, alienating his remaining staff further. Desperation led to more mistakes, compounding the company's troubles. As the financial situation worsened, Ethan's luxurious lifestyle began to slip away. He sold his prized possessions one by one, his sports car, his designer wardrobe, even his vacation home. Yet, the sacrifices barely made a dent in the mounting debts. For the first time, Ethan felt a vulnerability he couldn't ignore, a stark contrast to the power he once wielded effortlessly. News of the company's collapse spread, tarnishing Ethan's reputation among peers and competitors. Invitations to exclusive events ceased, and acquaintances grew distant. The once admired businessman now felt the sting of isolation, his arrogance turning to bitterness. He began to see how fleeting his status had been, built on fragile relationships and hollow achievements. One fateful evening, as he packed up his office for the last time, Ethan stumbled upon a faded thank you note from an employee he'd helped years ago. The memory jolted him, there had been a time when he valued kindness. The realization struck like lightning, his current misery wasn't just about financial loss but about the life he'd chosen to lead. It was a lesson he'd have to face, whether he was ready or not. Ethan's fall from grace culminated in a new reality he never imagined, searching for work. His resume, though impressive, now carried the stigma of failure. Days turned into weeks as rejection emails piled up. Each rejection felt like a slap to his pride, forcing him to confront the arrogance that had once defined him. In his search for stability, Ethan found a job as a waiter at a modest restaurant, far removed from the grandeur of his previous life. The irony was sharp, as he now catered to the very type of affluent clientele he once belonged to. Dressed in a simple uniform, he served meals with a forced smile, his once proud demeanor replaced by quiet humility. Ethan's struggles deepened when he encountered familiar faces at the restaurant, former clients and colleagues who now looked at him with pity or disdain. The sting of their judgment burned, but Ethan swallowed his pride and carried on. Each interaction was a bitter reminder of the consequences of his actions and the fragility of status. Fate delivered an unexpected twist when Ethan's new manager introduced himself, Ravi, the very man Ethan had humiliated months earlier. Ethan froze, bracing for mockery or retribution, but Ravi's demeanor was calm and professional. The weight of their shared past hung heavy, but Ravi chose kindness, treating Ethan with the respect Ethan had once denied him. The experience was both humbling and transformative. Watching Ravi lead with empathy and integrity left Ethan in awe. It was a stark contrast to his own leadership style, which had relied on fear and dominance. Ethan began to realize that strength didn't come from power but from the ability to uplift others, a truth he had ignored for far too long. One evening, Ethan observed an interaction that struck a deep chord within him. A young server accidentally spilled a drink on a difficult customer, who erupted into loud complaints. Ethan braced himself for Ravi's reaction, expecting either anger or indifference. Instead, Ravi calmly approached the table, diffusing the situation with measured words and an empathetic tone. Ravi didn't reprimand the server in public. Instead, he quietly reassured them and encouraged them to learn from the mistake. The contrast between Ravi's compassion and Ethan's past behavior was jarring. Ethan couldn't help but reflect on how differently he would have handled such a scenario, likely with anger or humiliation. This act of kindness was not an isolated event. Ethan began to notice the ripple effects of Ravi's leadership throughout the workplace. Employees respected him, not out of fear but admiration. Ravi's ability to inspire loyalty and positivity seemed effortless, yet Ethan knew it stemmed from intentional empathy and respect. Ethan found himself questioning his own past actions as a leader. He remembered the countless times he had used his position to assert dominance, believing it was the key to maintaining authority. Now, he saw the cracks in that belief, realizing how much damage he had caused to relationships and morale. As the days went on, Ethan started to see Ravi as more than a manager, he was a teacher. Watching Ravi's interactions became a mirror for Ethan's self-reflection. The memory of how he had treated Ravi resurfaced often, filling him with guilt but also planting the seeds of a desire to change. Ethan's epiphany began during a quiet evening shift. A group of employees gathered after work to share stories of how Ravi had impacted their lives. They spoke of his compassion, his encouragement during their lowest points, and how his unwavering support had motivated them to push forward in life. Ethan listened in silence, overwhelmed by an unexpected wave of emotions. One story, in particular, stood out. A young woman recounted how Ravi had helped her when she faced eviction due to financial struggles. Ravi not only offered her extra hours but also connected her with local resources to stabilize her situation. Ethan was stunned. Ravi had displayed the type of leadership that went far beyond professional obligation, it was rooted in humanity. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He replayed his own humiliating treatment of Ravi and compared it to the respect and dignity Ravi now embodied. It was a humbling realization. Ravi's strength lay not in power or wealth but in kindness, patience, and a deeply ingrained sense of justice. Ethan decided he couldn't carry the weight of his regret any longer. The following morning, he approached Ravi, nerves consuming him. For the first time in years, Ethan apologized, not a perfunctory statement, but a heartfelt expression of remorse. He admitted his arrogance and acknowledged the hurt he had caused, both to Ravi and others. Ravi's response was unexpected but profoundly impactful. He didn't chastise Ethan or dismiss the apology. Instead, he said, "What matters now is how you choose to move forward." Everyone deserves a second chance, Ethan, including you. Those words struck a chord, echoing in Ethan's mind as a lifeline. Ethan left that conversation feeling a flicker of hope. For the first time, he saw a possibility for redemption, not just to atone for his actions but to rebuild himself as a person who could bring value to others. It was the beginning of a long journey toward humility and self-awareness. Ethan's transformation didn't happen overnight. It was a painstaking process of self-reflection and unlearning old habits. He started small, offering genuine compliments to his co-workers and actively listening during conversations. These minor changes began to dismantle the walls of arrogance he had built around himself. His most challenging step came when he volunteered at a community center Ravi often supported. At first, Ethan felt out of place. The people he once looked down on were now his equals. But over time, he discovered the power of connection. Listening to their stories, sharing their struggles, and working alongside them gave Ethan a sense of purpose he had never felt before. One evening, during a volunteer event, Ethan found himself in a conversation with Ravi. They worked together to distribute supplies to families in need. Ravi's demeanor was calm and humble, a stark contrast to the man Ethan had once mocked. As they talked, Ethan realized he was no longer intimidated by Ravi's kindness but inspired by it. Ethan began to notice how Ravi's leadership was rooted in empathy. It wasn't about commanding respect but earning it through actions. Ravi had built a bridge of trust with the people around him, a stark reminder to Ethan of the type of leader he once aspired to be. Motivated by these experiences, Ethan started journaling his reflections, a habit he had abandoned years ago. Writing became a form of therapy, helping him process his mistakes and envision the person he wanted to become. Each entry was a step toward a more empathetic version of himself. By the end of the year, Ethan had not only rebuilt his confidence but also shifted his focus. He wasn't chasing success for the sake of validation anymore. Instead, he found fulfillment in helping others succeed. Ethan's bridge wasn't just for himself, it was for everyone he had hurt along the way. Ethan's journey reached a pivotal moment during a community event Ravi organized. The event aimed to celebrate acts of kindness and promote a message of equality. Ethan, still volunteering regularly, had quietly contributed to the planning and execution of the day's activities. During the event, Ravi took the stage to address the crowd. Ethan watched in awe as Ravi's words captivated the audience. Ravi spoke of the transformative power of kindness, highlighting the importance of treating everyone with dignity, regardless of their circumstances. To Ethan's surprise, Ravi shared a story about forgiveness. Though he didn't name Ethan, it was clear whom he referred to. Ravi recounted the day he had been humiliated at work, how deeply it had hurt, but also how it inspired him to lead with compassion instead of resentment. Everyone has a choice, Ravi said, to let bitterness define us or to let kindness transform us. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. It was the first time he fully grasped the depth of Ravi's grace. The humility it took to forgive someone who had wronged him, and to use that experience as a lesson to uplift others, was a revelation. Ethan realized he had been forgiven long before he had apologized, and that forgiveness had paved the way for his transformation. Later that day, Ethan approached Ravi to express his gratitude. He didn't just apologize again but thanked Ravi for showing him what true leadership looked like. Ravi smiled and placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "The hardest battles are the ones we fight within ourselves," Ravi said. "And you've already won the most important one." For the first time, Ethan saw his past not as a source of shame but as a catalyst for growth. It wasn't just about making amends, it was about becoming someone worthy of respect, someone who could carry forward the lessons he had learned. As Ethan embraced his new life, he began to see the world through a lens of humility and gratitude. No longer consumed by arrogance, he observed the dignity in hard work and the strength in community. Every interaction became an opportunity to listen, learn, and grow. One evening, while walking through the neighborhood, Ethan noticed Ravi chatting with a group of young people. Curious, Ethan joined the group and discovered they were discussing challenges they faced, from financial struggles to cultural prejudices. Ravi listened intently, offering advice and encouragement. Inspired by the conversation, Ethan decided to share his own story for the first time. He spoke of his fall from privilege and the lessons he learned about empathy and respect. The group listened, some nodding, others visibly moved. For Ethan, it was a moment of vulnerability, but also one of connection. He realized that by sharing his experiences, he could inspire others to reflect on their actions and choices. Ethan's new perspective also influenced his daily work. As a volunteer, he began organizing programs to help others facing challenges similar to his. From mentoring young entrepreneurs to supporting new immigrants in the community, Ethan discovered the fulfillment of making a difference. The humility he once lacked now fueled his drive to contribute meaningfully. He stopped measuring success by material wealth and instead valued the lives he touched. Slowly, Ethan's reputation began to shift, not as the arrogant businessman he once was, but as a humble, compassionate leader. Ethan's journey wasn't without moments of doubt. There were times he struggled with his past, questioning if he could ever truly make up for his mistakes. But each time, he returned to what Ravi had taught him: transformation isn't about perfection, it's about intention and progress. One busy evening at the restaurant, Ethan witnessed a moment that brought everything full circle. A young waiter accidentally spilled a drink on a customer, causing a commotion. The customer's frustration was palpable, and the waiter looked mortified, frozen in fear. Before Ethan could intervene, Ravi stepped in. With calm authority, he apologized to the customer and reassured the waiter. He addressed the situation with respect, diffusing the tension effortlessly. Ethan watched in awe, recognizing the same empathy Ravi had shown him months ago. Later that night, Ethan approached Ravi, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I saw what you did earlier. You didn't just handle the situation, you protected him. You showed him the kindness I never gave you." Ravi smiled, a warm and forgiving expression. "Ethan, kindness isn't about keeping score. It's about creating a ripple. Someone once showed me the same grace, and I've tried to carry it forward ever since." Ethan was struck by the depth of those words. The act of kindness Ravi had shown him was now shaping the way he lived his own life. Ethan realized that Ravi's compassion hadn't just saved him from arrogance, it had inspired him to become better. Determined to carry forward that ripple effect, Ethan made it his mission to honor the lesson he had learned. He began mentoring staff at the restaurant, encouraging them to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. His mentorship extended beyond work, reaching into the community where he once turned a blind eye. Through small, consistent acts of kindness, Ethan felt a sense of purpose he had never known. He began to see the power in creating a chain of empathy, one act leading to another, transforming lives. Ethan's transformation became evident not only to himself but to everyone around him. No longer consumed by pride, he found solace in humility and joy in helping others. However, the turning point came during an employee meeting Ravi called to celebrate the restaurant's anniversary. During the gathering, Ravi surprised Ethan by publicly acknowledging his contributions. "Ethan," Ravi began, "your journey is an inspiration. You've reminded us that growth is possible for anyone willing to learn and change." Moved, Ethan took the opportunity to address everyone. He shared his story of arrogance, his fall from grace, and the empathy that had ignited his redemption. He spoke with honesty and vulnerability, touching the hearts of everyone present. "I learned that success isn't about wealth or power," Ethan said, his voice steady. "It's about the legacy you leave through the lives you touch." Inspired by the impact he could make, Ethan began a new chapter. He left the restaurant to start a non-profit organization focused on empowering individuals to overcome workplace humiliation and rebuild their confidence. The initiative provided coaching, resources, and mentorship, and its mission was simple: turn every act of kindness into a chain reaction of change. In his journey, Ethan reconnected with Ravi, who became a partner in the nonprofit's endeavors. Together, they reached out to communities, using their story to inspire others. What began as a moment of disgrace had evolved into a mission that transcended them both. Ethan discovered that his purpose had always been within reach, he just needed the humility to embrace it. For the first time, his life was not defined by transactions but by the meaningful connections he fostered. Ethan's story began to spread beyond the walls of the restaurant and his non-profit organization. Word of his transformation reached former colleagues, business rivals, and even the clients he had once dismissed. Some were skeptical, others curious, but many were inspired to reflect on their own actions. One day, Ethan received an email from a former employee he had belittled years ago. The message was simple yet profound: "Your story gave me the courage to forgive myself and try again. Thank you for proving that change is possible." These messages became a source of strength for Ethan. They were reminders that even his darkest moments could be repurposed to bring light to others. Slowly, he began to mend broken relationships, reaching out to those he had hurt. Some welcomed his apology, while others needed more time. Ethan understood, true reconciliation required patience and sincerity. At a community event, Ethan and Ravi shared the stage, recounting their journey. Ravi emphasized how small acts of kindness could change lives, while Ethan spoke about the power of humility. Their words resonated deeply with the audience, leaving many in tears. Ethan's nonprofit started gaining attention from larger organizations. They partnered with schools, workplaces, and community centers to spread their message of respect and empathy. Programs were launched to teach young people the importance of understanding others, turning mistakes into learning opportunities, and leading with compassion. Through these efforts, Ethan's redemption extended far beyond his own life. The movement he had started was creating ripples of change, encouraging countless others to reassess their values and actions. What began as a humbling fall had blossomed into a mission of healing, growth, and unity. Ethan stood in the very restaurant where his journey of transformation began. As he looked around, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. The walls bore photographs of moments that marked his nonprofit's growth, workshops, smiles of once struggling individuals, and snapshots of Ravi leading with quiet strength. Ethan realized the story wasn't just his, it belonged to everyone whose lives had been touched by the power of humility and kindness. He addressed a crowd gathered for the nonprofit's annual celebration. "I once believed success meant standing above others," Ethan began. "But I've learned that true success lies in lifting others up. Each act of kindness, no matter how small, creates a legacy that outlives us all." The audience erupted in applause, but Ethan knew the real reward wasn't the recognition. It was the lives transformed by a simple truth: redemption is possible for anyone willing to embrace change. With humility as his guide, Ethan continued his mission, proving that even the proudest souls can be reshaped through courage and compassion. His journey became a beacon of hope, showing that the greatest acts of kindness often arise from the humblest hearts.